Hey, this is Mike, and we're going to be looking at the Revelation 12 sign that happened between 2016, November 20th, leading up to September 23rd, 2017. And today's date is September 27th. And what you're looking at here right now is the Revelation 12 sign unfolding. So here we are, we're coming up to the conclusion of it, and all right, there we are. September 23rd, 2017. You can see, let's see if we can get a drawing here. So we have the sun, the moon, and we have a crown of 12 stars. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We got that crown there. Put it all together. Got yourself a crown. All right. So, what does this mean? Well, let's see what the Bible has to say, and we'll take it verse by verse and see if we can pen this thing down, see what it really says. All right. So, Revelation chapter 12. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And she was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. All right, so that is the sign here. So we have the moon under her feet. The sun is clothing her. Once again, we have the 12 stars making the crown. And we have Jupiter here that went around and around, and it's about ready to be birthed out. Let's see what we get here. All right, then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. And his tail swept away a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. All right, so right now we don't see a dragon, but a guy called Fisherman, he's got a great YouTube channel. He figured out what the sign actually is. So if you go to the, right around the 13th, the 14th, definitely the 15th is when Jupiter exits Virgo. And what we have over here to the left is a snake. We do have a crown. So if we can get a drawing of that, so we have the snake here. We have the crown of 7 stars, but you also have Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and Mars. And so if we draw this, that kind of looks like a dragon when you draw that out in the sky. So we take a really big look at it here, zooming all the way out. We got the dragon. You can see we're going to continue it through all the way up to there. And so when you kind of slice it, let's see here, where is Polaris? There's the North Star. So when you kind of give it a pie chart, that is roughly 1/3 of the sky is covered by this sign. And so that does fit. So let's continue So this happens on October 15th, right when Jupiter comes out of Virgo. So let's keep reading here. So that's the next one. And she gave birth to a son, a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. All right. So the next step is we need to identify his throne and when the child, which is going to be Jupiter, gets caught up. So let's go back to Stellarium and we'll go forward in time. So here we are. We have Jupiter moving. And it's going to hit Libra, the scales of justice. And a lot of people say that justice is God's throne room, which kind of makes sense because that's kind of where the judgments come out. But anyway, you can see right here, right around March 6th, you can see Jupiter gets caught, and the word for that is harpazo in the Greek, which kind of means like a hard jolt. And so it was moving pretty smoothly, then all of a sudden right here it stops. So it gets jolted, and then right around the 20th or so it starts to go retrograde. And the 20th is the equinox. It's going to be the spring equinox, and so that is something to take note because that could be something important. I'm still looking into this, but I will address the equinox. But for today, we're going to be using the 6th. So March 6th, 2018 is going to be the next date. And we'll explain this in a minute here. So she gave birth to a son, a male child who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared by God, so that there she would be nourished for 1,260 days. All right. And so from this point forward, we're going to be leaving the heavens alone. And once again, just in case screen capture doesn't work, we have Jupiter down here in Libra on the 6th. So let's get a calculator. So we have 3/6/2018, and we're going to be adding 1,260 days to that. And when we calculate the date, we get August 17th, 2021. And so we'll go to the Jewish calendar. You can see here August 17th. Doesn't really show much. If we go with the 20th, calculate that date, we get August 31st. So this is kind of like the window. It's 31st. We do have the 28th, which is going to be prayers for forgiveness and preparation for the high holy days, which of course is the fall feasts. But you know, we're not, the dates don't really line up. And so what can we do here? Well, let's keep reading and see what we can get here. So Revelation 12:7, and there was a war in heaven, Michael and his angels waging war with the dragon. And the dragon and his angels waged war, and they were not strong enough, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren has been thrown down, he who accuses them before our God day and night. And they overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their life even when faced with death. For this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. All right. And so what we have here is war in heaven, and then the devil gets thrown down. And so where have we seen war in heaven before? We've seen that in Daniel chapter 10. I'm going to start in 12, but the war is actually in 13. So in 12 it says, Then he said to me, this is the angel of the Lord, do not be afraid, Daniel, for from this first day that you set your heart to understanding this, and on humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days. Then behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I have been left there with the kings of Persia. Now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision pertains to days yet future. Okay, so we have something pretty interesting here. We have war in heaven that lasts 21 days. And so if we take the calendar and if we add 21 days, we end up with 1281. And so this is when Satan's going to get thrown down to earth. And so we end up with, let's change that to the 6th. We end up with September 7th, 2021. And so here we are, the eve of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. So if we go to the next year, all right, there we are. The Jewish New Year, Feast of Trumpets. And so we're able to tie in Revelation chapter 12 to September 2021, the Jewish New Year. And so this is the theory that the Daniel's 70th week is going to start right here. It's either going to start on in between here or maybe potentially all the way down to Yom Kippur or the Feast of Tabernacles. This is kind of the range in which it will start. So if we go back to the date calculator, if we go with the 20th, we get the 21st of September, which is the start of Tabernacles. So this gives us a pretty good window for when this will start. And so we'll just keep reading here. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman, so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the presence of the serpent. All right, so times, half a time. So if we count, we're going to go by years here. So we have time. We're going to go times. So we're going to go 2 times. 1, 2. And then we're going to go half a time. So we're in the fall feast. And so we're going to go to the spring feast of 2025. And that puts us on April 13th, 2025. And so we'll just keep reading here. So this is most likely when the mid-trib is going to happen. That's going to be the abomination of desolation. So that's definitely something to look forward to. Look for that happening on April 2025. Something to watch for. So, and I also believe that the 2 wings of the great eagle, that could be America. With the two eclipses that are passing through on 2017 and 2024. And I've also heard several prophets say that the president that gets elected in 2024 that will then start to rule in 2025, he is going to be not a good president for Christians and people of the Jewish faith as well. And so that's something that I've heard from a couple prophets. And so with the two wings only protecting until 2025, that kind of makes sense actually. So anyway, we're going to keep reading here. So, and the serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman, so that he might cause her to be swept away with the flood. But the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and drank up the river which the dragon poured out of his mouth. So the dragon was enraged with woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. Excuse me. All right. Revelation 13. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, with the feet were those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave his power to his throne and great authority. And so this goes back to Daniel chapter 7, where all these animals were mentioned, but the eagle is missing from here, which we saw earlier in Revelation chapter 12. So I'm going to keep reading here. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him?" There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and the authority to act for 42 months was given to him. All right, so we have another date here. So we're going to go from April 2025, 13th. So let's see here. April 13th, 2025. And we're going to be adding 42 months here. 42, calculate new date. Yeah, all right, so we end up on Friday the 13th, October 2028. So let's go to 2028, 26, 27, 28. Here we are on the 13th, and that's going to be day of celebrating Torah. This is going to be the end of a minor, so it's right after Tabernacles ends is the next day. And so that would be the end of Daniel's 70th week is going to be Friday the 13th, October 2028. If this theory holds out. Once again, this is just a theory, but it does have some merit, I would say. Definitely something to look into. And so one thing to look for then is if we take that day, the 13th October, and we go back a year and 10 days, and this is if the flood is similar. So if Noah's total time, which I believe is 1 year and 10 days, if that judgment length of time is going to be the same. Then we end up on October 2027, Sunday the 3rd. That's the Feast of Trumpets, the end of the Feast of Trumpets. And so that kind of gives us the latest that a rapture could take place, if this theory holds out, and if we're following the pre-wrath theory that Nelson Walters has put out there, which I think is very good, by the way. So we got to narrow this down a little bit better. And so in Amos chapter 8, verse 9, it says, "In that day, says the sovereign Lord, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth while it was still day. I will turn your celebrations into times of mourning and your singing into weeping. You will wear funeral clothes and shave your head to show your sorrow, as if your only son had died. How very bitter that day will be." All right, so this sounds pretty bad. So we have the sun will go down at noon. So what we got here, we have August 2nd, 2027 at 1 p.m. daylight savings time. And so if you fall back, subtract 1 hour from that, you're going to end up at 12 noon. In Jerusalem is going to be the peak of the solar eclipse. Maximum eclipse, 12 noon or 1 daylight savings time, right on the dot. And so when you take that into account, that gives us, go back 1 year and check out what's happening. August 2nd, 2027. There's really nothing there. This is just the month of Av, and then from here we don't have any sort of feast or anything going on. The closest we have is the 9th of Av, which is when the first and second temples were destroyed and that's going to be August 11th, 2027, but that's not even within 7 days of the second. And so this definitely is a day that no one would really know, because there's no feast, there's no hint at anything happening on this day other than what we get out of the book of Amos, which is going to, the sun will go down at noon. So anyway, the next video I plan on doing is I'm going to look at the sun going down at noon in much more detail. And so stick around and I'll show you that next.